Today's video is sponsored by over 10,000 years of human evolution. More about that later in the video. Welcome to Disruptive Philosophy with me, Brittany. This is going to be the third video in the part 1 of my series called Prime Alchemy: How Humans Work. In this video, I'm going to be going over what is depth psychology and human mythology. And if you've been following along in the series, this video, you might start seeing how this information is building on itself. This series is really like a giant puzzle, and you need to have all the individual pieces or videos to understand it in its fullness. So as we go along, you will notice stuff and concepts and ideas starting to build on themselves. Depth psychology refers to the practice and research of the science of the unconscious, covering both psychoanalysis and psychology. It's also defined as the psychological theory that explores the relationship between the conscious and the unconscious, as well as the patterns and dynamics of motivation and the mind. The theories of Sigmund Freud, Carl Jung, and Alfred Adler are all considered the foundations of depth psychology. Since the 1970s, depth psychology has come to add a few more names to that list, including theories and therapies pioneered by Pierre Janet and William James, as well as Jung and Freud. Depth psychology is also the branch of psychology that asserts that a vast majority of a person's personality is determined and influenced by unconscious processes. A complex is a structure in the unconscious that is objectified as an underlining theme, like a power or a status, by grouping clusters of emotions, memories, perceptions, and wishes in response to a threat to the stability of the self. Without resolution, complexes continue to exert unconscious, maladaptive influence on our thought, feelings, and behavior and keep us from achieving psychological integration. In the area of depth psychology, complexes was a term coined by Jung to talk about the unconscious aspects of the personality that basically are toxic and lash out in neurosis or mental health disorders. Neurosis, a mental disorder that causes a sense of distress and a deficit in functioning. Neuroses are characterized by anxiety, depression, or other feelings of unhappiness or distress that are out of proportion to the circumstances of a person's life. They may impair a person's functioning in virtually any area of his life, relationships, or external affairs, but they are not severe enough to incapacitate the person. Affected patients generally do not suffer from the loss of the sense of reality seen in persons with psychosis. Complexes are common features of the psychic landscape, especially according to Jung, and become the most relevant in psychotherapeutic examinations, and most especially when we are self-individuating and becoming a whole human, like what we're trying to do in this video series. Many scholars believe that Jung's biggest contribution to depth psychology is the concept of the collective unconscious. While Freud cited conceptualized unconscious forces was limited to repressed or forgotten experiences, Jung was more focused on the qualities that individuals shared with other people. This is demonstrated in Jung's notion that all lives are ultimately embedded in some sort of myth-making in the form of themes or patterns. This myth-making or creation of mythical images lies in the depths of the unconscious, where an individual's mind widens out and merges into the mind of mankind. Basically, what he's saying is that we have our outer world, we have an inner world, we have an unconscious in that inner world, and then we have what is a collective unconscious. So you have your own personal unconscious, but then there's a collective unconscious that stores kind of human memory through generations, humankind, right? And an example of something that would be in the collective unconscious would be like generational trauma. You can also think of the archetypes we've talked about, the primordial archetypes. The primordial image or archetype is a figure, a human being, that constantly
recurs in the course of history, and appears wherever creative fantasy is freely expressed. Essentially, therefore, it is a mythological figure. In each of these images, there is a little piece of human psychology and human fate, a remnant of the joys and the sorrows that have been repeated countless times in our ancestral history. Carl Gustav Jung.
Before they are filled in with our subjective life experiences, the memory of those things, like a mother archetype, is stored in that collective unconscious as well, and then kind of initiated in different stages of an individual's life. Great example, like I said, a mother archetype, a child, a baby, a newborn, they don't speak English. They don't understand the world that they are experiencing because they were just in the womb and it was black and safe and they were close to mom, and now they're like detached. They're detached from mom. Sorry, that just sounded funny. That child still knows what a mother is, even though they may not know the word mother, right? Even though their eyes may not be bringing in all of the sensory data of the world, they know which abstract shape is mother. Those kinds of instincts, connections, data is passed through the collective unconscious. So when Jung is talking about the human mythology or the human myth, so think of the human myth the same as just like story, the human story. You have your own individual story as the protagonist of your life experience, and then as a species, humanity has their own story or their own myth. And these things are communicated through visual imagery, like dreams. More about that later in the series. But we also communicate these kind of things through movies. In ancient times or in historical times, they shared this information through parables or stories, myths. Again, we are definitely going to dive deeper into human mythology or human story because it is connected to religious practices and pantheons of gods, because philosophy, when it was created at the foundation, involved human mythology, spirituality, okay, and all of these philosophical topics we're talking about. And we have the Catholic and Christian denominations of religion to thank for the fact that they took a lot of the religious mythology out of philosophy and kind of made philosophy more this intellectual, logic-based practice. Whereas philosophy has always included all of these different aspects. Mythology is therefore not a series of old explanations for natural events, but rather the richness and wonder of humanity played out in symbolic, thematic, and pattern storytelling. Jung's psychology and process to self-individuation is very much dependent on the person that is using this philosophy to come to terms with the fact that there is a human collective story and myth, and that there is a collective unconscious, and that we do have unconscious complexes. As we go through this series, I will emphasize different ideas that are foundational to being able to use this philosophy as a tool, or to incorporate this philosophy as your value system in your life. And complexes, the collective unconscious, and human myth making, the human story, are just a couple of the first ones. I'll give you a spoiler on a few. Dreams are really important. Really important. They communicate lots of things to us. You should pay attention to them. They actually communicate so many things. It's actually probably, I know that this is not true, but in my mind, I have a little conspiracy that like the people controlling us, they know how powerful our dreams are and how much our dreams can communicate what's going on in our inner world and help us with our experience in our outer world and understanding ourselves. And that's why collectively in society, we've agreed that dreams are nothing, that they don't mean anything, that it's just random images of experiences you've had in your life that are sorted and then put into your memory. Bullshit. That's some capitalism bullshit. It's society wants to control you bullshit. Is bullshit. More on that later in the series. Thank you so much if you made it to the end of this video. This has been Brittany with Disruptive Philosophy, and we will be continuing with this series. I hope you enjoyed this. Please let me know down in the chat if you have any questions or want to add to what I have shared, if this is something you already study, or just whatever you want to put in the comment. If you just want to like say hi or just like leave a comment for the algorithm, all will be appreciated. Okay, so like what I wanted to say in the video is over now. So let's just, now I remind you to do the YouTube things, the like, the subscribe, all those things, do that. And then also go to my Disruptive Bodies channel and check out my live streams and clips from that and do the YouTube things on that one too. Okay? I shouldn't have to explain all the details. We've been doing this for over a decade now, right? Like, you know, if you like the shit, you do the YouTube shit. You know what it is, right? You know. Do it. You got this far in the video, you might as well. You clearly liked it enough to get this far. Do the thing so I can get this fucking information out. Goodbye. See you in the next one. Be a fucking human today.